Welcome to Culture of Paint. On this episode, we're going to take a look at what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks in the miniatures painting world. For our main topic, we're going to discuss how the style of painting has changed in Horus Heresy over the 10 years of its first edition. And we'll close out the show as normal, taking a look at what the hashtag paint cultists have been up to and taking any questions from the chat. Now, Culture of Paint's aimed at a mature audience, so we might use explicit language and discuss adult themes. Now let's talk about paint. Okay, we said all the devotions we need to Matt to get him running, plugged him in. Like where he's got his what they called purity seals and all of that over him.
Mustn't have been praying hard enough. My legs are, yeah.
We were fine. We just turn you into Servo Skull, mate. You don't need legs then. You can just hover around. It'd be nice. Right. Good evening, everyone. The chat's in there. Loads you in there. Lovely. Some familiar names and some new ones as well. It's been a month since we had chat. This seems forever because we did that weird sort of pre-record, didn't we, for the last one? So yeah, lovely to see you all there. I'm Henry. Joining me as usual, Andy, Matt, and Rich. How are we, gents?
That'd be good, mate.
All good.
Feeling psyched for hobby? I know I am.
Too much. Don't want to do real life. Just want to hobby.
Absolutely, Joe. Yeah, it's a good time right now. I pity you though, mate. Yeah, like that's rough. Getting literally all your favourite things within a couple of months. Yeah, that's tough. that is
I'm
tough.
dying.
They could have spread them out a tiny bit more. But we'll keep you honest with them. They're looking good. Right, let's jump into it. What's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks? First slide up.
Got it on the right page this time, first time around. Amazing. So, first up is...
Me.
Nice.
Shock horror. It's a Marine.
It's one of the coolest Chaos Marines, though.
It is one of the coolest Chaos Marines. Back on the kill team hype. The reveal of the new Infiltrator Space Marines and Traitor Guard, which is amazing. So they snuck in Traitor Guard. It's going to be its own box that you can create like the characters out of for kill team, but also you can just create them as generic guards. So Traitor Guard,
like Krieg, but
you have a multi-part Traitor Guard, which is insanely
amazing.
cool.
And you get that really cool character set, don't you?
Yeah, you get the Ogren and the
I love that Ogren.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
But back to this. This just caught my eye. I'm massively back into Marines again. I know it doesn't take a lot, but with Horus Heresy, I've been really into it. And this is just a really cool idea. I've seen a few people use this Death Guard, 40k Death Guard base model, and then de-nurgle it and just turn it into a Chaos Marine. Which is cool because I'm not a fan of the Gribblies bits, as we've spoken about before. And then fucking shoulder-mounted missile launcher.
Ooh.
Like, you just can't go wrong.
Is that in the Havoc kit?
I have no idea.
Because it really looks like that old metal one, right?
Yeah, it does. But I don't know. I don't know if they've printed it themselves.
I wonder if anyone in the chat knows. Because that's like one of the few Chaos kits I don't have.
Yeah, same here. I don't have the Havoc.
So we need to, we need to find out.
I just thought it was painted really well, really good concept, and just executed really well. Nice photography as well, showing all the different angles and a bit of hazards in there. I just saw it and was like, oh, that's a bit of me. That is. So that's why it's my pick.
But your alphas are looking nice, mate. A nice, interesting take,
buddy.
Looking forward to seeing them done.
I was really stoked actually. Someone did a painting of one of the things which I saw, which is the first time it's ever happened to me. So
that's really cool.
You've got to finish the kill team now, mate.
I know, pressure, fuck.
It's a good. I love the Red Corsairs. It's such a fun concept, and red and black and brass. It just looks good, right?
I wish you did that army, mate.
I keep looking over it on the shelf. It did come out nice. Well, I've built myself a Chaos kill team, and I too have used one Death Guard mini in it, but I've made my Shank Bro out of it, whatever he's called. Is he a Flaymaster or something? Whichever the Chaos Marine is with the knives,
dual knives.
I've used a I've used a Death Guard as his base. I would just use Stabgrot. I did find the Warcry rules for fielding Stabgrot the other day, so I could just make an entire warband of Stabgrots. But anyway, but yeah, Kill Team, great choice. And Red Cross says it's just a nice alternative option, right, to Black Legion. Yeah. Like I know you've got these different lesser Chaos warbands now, like what they called like the Purge and Sons of Malice and things like that. But I like the idea of having these two sort of classic, big, almost Chaos versions of Ultramarines, right? Where you could take any unit and it would be thematically easy, would all make sense. I love seeing the other kit. So I love seeing like Black Legion Death Guard, you know, or like Red Corsairs Thousands and things. I really like it.
Do you know what you're going to do your Kill Team yet?
Yes, I think Red Corsairs.
Yeah.
Because as Andy said, I did that one for the tutorial and I really enjoyed it. And also, I'm not in the mood to paint more trim. So rather than blacking it out and then painting it over with something, I can just black it out. So yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. But yeah, they're all
forward to on mine.
You know, they're built up, good to go. Yeah, really keen to. I messaged Rich about it, didn't I, a few weeks ago? I was like, what do I do? Like,
what do I need? What should I take?
What do I need? How the hell does this work?
You've taken the guy with the big double-handed axe, haven't you?
Yeah, I basically just took all the ones that weren't normal dudes.
That's all you need. Then you'll kill everybody because they're the best kill team at the moment.
That's fine then. I mean, you're not taking into account my abilities as a general, though.
Don't need to make his kill team.
Okay, nice. There's the advert.
If I can play it competently, any fucker can play it.
Oh dear, love it. Oh, so we're getting more love for your T-shirt, Rich. We were having a chat about that before.
Yeah.
Is that the new Havoc missile? Yeah, we want to know. Is that the new Havoc?
I don't know.
Blade Mirage says it's from the plastic kit. Well, that's going to have to go on the list.
There you go.
Havoc
that's
kit.
Exactly I might have to find that.
There we go. I like the feet on the Havoc kit. I think that's pretty cool. They're like the Chaos versions of the bigger Devastators, aren't they?
I want the Sergeant, actually. He's mega the Sergeant in that kit.
But yeah, enough of that Kill Team. We'll do another Kill Team episode soon, I'm sure. I want to do a Warcry one soon because I played that at the weekend and I flipping love it. Right, game. Next slide. What's that, Matt?
Next up is...
cool. It's my pick. Speaking of like warbands and that type of thing, this is an account that I followed for a few years now, and I found it via the 2Ps podcast hobby group. Just a real prolific hobbyist. Is always pumping stuff out, always presents their stuff really nicely. Very creative. It's just nice. It's not necessarily my normal like go-to style of stuff, paint wise, but it's just he's always got something new like every week to enjoy and to look at. And and then after ages we discovered we went to school together, which is kind of fun as well. After like 20 odd years, he was like, "Are you?" And I was like, "Yeah, you." And it's like, "Yeah." So that was nice. But cool. Lots of a great account to follow. I follow them on Twitter mainly, but they are on Instagram and stuff as well. But they did loads of Lord of the Rings, and then just were like, "Oh, I'm going to do some Necromunda / Inquisitor / that type of thing." And has just been knocking out like amazing Gene Stealer cult stuff, amazing Inquisitor stuff. Like just every couple of days something goes up.
That's cool.
I really love the Rogue Psyker or Sanctioned Psyker conversion using the Krieg.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's really cool.
That is cool.
But I'd love to find that style where I could get projects like this done quick. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you have the idea, get it built, get it painted, and it's almost done within a week, and you're on to the next thing.
I know what you mean. I like the idea of like little warbands like that where you can have a random idea. It doesn't have to be a Space Marine. It doesn't have to be anything that is like a current like IP. It's just like race and mongrels, like just random people. And there's Planet 28 is a really good little game system that I would love to do. I'd love to get a few people that are interested to do like a little warband and just play with the Planet 28 rules because they're so simple. That'd be a really fun thing to do for a while.
James has just said in the chat, like it's all the cool little hanger-on models and assistants and things. And it is there's so many of those cool models now. You know, he was mentioning Helbrecht's like sword polisher and stuff like that. Like Games Workshop's getting so sort of capable, aren't they, with their sculpts, that there's almost like throwaway basing models and little basing decoration models that are in themselves
Great
amazing minis. Like I remember when they brought out was it the Great Unclean one, and we had the little Nurglings like with the sword, you know, and I think that's when it, because a lot of the Death Guard I think got Nurgling characters, didn't they, as well?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
and I just feel like since then it's just more and more of that.
There's some really good old models as well. Some of the old metal ones. Like there's one from there's one of the first ones I've ever bought. It's like a preacher. He's got like a claw holding a banner, and he's got a plasma gun in the other arm.
Yeah,
and he's got like his backpack's full of like the Imperial Truth books.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man, I remember.
I'd love
when
to have
like
a little campaign with them. It'd be amazing.
That's Uriah Jacobs, isn't it? That model.
It's the same era, but they brought out two like missionaries. One's got like a chainsaw and a symbol of whatever, and the other one's the one Rich is talking about. And then Uriah Jacobus come out at the same time. Yeah, amazing, so good. Yeah, like he hasn't got a redo yet, has he?
He's gone away.
He'll be due, guaranteed. Their next one, he's getting it. I'm sure of it.
Hope so.
Oh, wouldn't it be great if for Kill Team we got like a Frateris Militia type Kill Team, you know, with the preacher and the sort of the dudes. That'd be awesome. But yeah, again, it's going to be a few rabbit holes on this episode, I think.
God.
Somehow. Warhammer Weirdos apparently is the collective term.
That'd be a good one.
For the helmet polishers and whatnot.
Yeah, I already want to do something different. Looking at the Kill Team box that's coming out with those Traitor Guard.
Yeah,
I've seen them individually now. I'm like, that'd be amazing.
And they're different, aren't they, to what we got in Blackstone?
Blackstone Fortress. Yeah.
It's just crazy good.
It's too much. There's too much.
Crazy good times right now if you like this stuff. It really is, and we haven't even got to the main topic. But yeah, go check out that account if you like that kind of thing, because there's always stuff coming up on it. What's up next, Matt?
So next up, and I kept it on topic, is my one.
well done, mate. Well done. Someone has to.
So I've been on a bit of a heresy bandwagon with tanks. Got to find all those hashtags.
Good way to go.
Yeah. Aiden, I think his name's Aiden. I think that's how he says it. Put this up the other day, and I was like, "World Eaters, yay!" I want mine to look like that, but with even more blood on it.
Absolutely. So are you thinking you'll go with this rather than the Kratos, or
no? I'm going to do the Kratos like this.
Right. Cool.
This was the blue and the white. It's,
so nice, isn't it?
It's just how I have them
Not
in my
blue
head.
and red.
No, I'm sick of red now. Done with red.
I like the fact as well that the blood stuff just shows up better on the white and blue scheme, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I like the without the blood on it. That's the best thing about this, I think. It's like early World Eaters where they're not all psychotic maniacs. They're just good at killing people.
Just on the edge.
A little bit of blood, just like they've just about hit that crazy nails going a bit berserk. But no, I thought this was really cool. Scheme. I love the blue.
Hellblade's best out of the three.
Is an absolute classic, eh?
The blue on this, he said, is actually the same blue you used for your Ultramarines, Andy. The tutorial you
looks
did.
like my turret.
It does look a lot like, a lot.
That white bit. I did the white bit, didn't I, for the Ultras? So it's like...
Yeah, he said he used the same colours that you did from your tutorial, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice one. I'm just about to do something, reliving that Ultramarine dream.
So I'm I have to find those colours and do my Kratos like that.
Yeah, I think we've got. If they're out of stock, I've got a few pots back here. You're all right.
No,
we never know. We might have an even better blue for you soon. Yeah, excellent choice, and be very interesting to see if we see this beastie in the plastic anytime soon. Because it was the first Heresy Super Heavy, wasn't it? Did we get this? We got this before like the Typhon or anything like that, didn't we? It was.
Yeah.
I think this was.
Hellblade was first.
Yeah.
God, you imagine it in plastic. Fuck.
I'd build it if it was in
got
plastic.
All three in the kit.
Well, yeah, like the Baneblade variants.
You never know, right? I thought it was
it's-
interesting. They didn't
right.
say anything about the Sicaran, did they? They didn't say anything about whether they were sticking variants in that boy.
It's just the turrets that's different on them, isn't it? And
More or less. Like the bit at the front has slightly different weapons sometimes as well. I mean, there's only the two. The Falchion's completely different, yeah.
Falchion's the best.
But this and the glaive are you could dual kit this with the glaive, absolutely.
Yeah. Falchion, no way.
Yeah.
If it comes out in plastic, I'll definitely build it. I'm not touching it in resin.
It's fine in resin. It's fine.
We've moved past the need for that.
New age.
Nice. Well, yeah, good choice, mate. So that must mean it's just you left, Andy. That's nice. Lovely. We featured this account before.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very good. I just love it. It's the wood grain on the barrel for me. I'm like, and if you're gaming with stuff like that is amazing. But just that lid swap, the wood grain, the paint scheme, the little it's just
the mushrooms.
It's all kinds of good. I don't know. It just got me. That's the thing that stood out to me the most this last week.
He's good, that lad. We've seen him before.
Yeah, the colour scheme and the wood grain. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
He does really nifty little conversions like that. He's got, I don't know if it's an army of them yet, but there's definitely a squad's worth, and it just looks.
Yeah, I picked this one as my favourite out of all the squad, and I love the blue and the silver metallic.
Just all the effort he went to. Like that's the end of a Mechanica rifle attached to a last gun from a Krieg kit.
It's subtle and works so well, isn't it?
Well, it looks like a stock kit,
mate.
right? That's always. I think that's always the pinnacle, right? When it looks like that.
Yeah,
kit,
absolutely.
It's just made that way, right?
What's the lid from?
I think it shows you. It's one of the Adeptus Guitari kits. It's the other.
It is Guitari.
It's the other kit, yeah. Or the other build rather. The ones with the ray guns. But yeah, very, very nice. Lovely.
Great
right.
choice.
They're good picks, eh?
Great choices.
So yeah, shrooms are getting some love in there, so that's good. So what is up next? Is it main topic, or did you find a meme? What's going on? Main topic. Lovely. Right. Well, for this topic, we had a chat about a few things in this sort of wheelhouse, but we decided to go with us all being Heresy fans. Matt coming into it like a sort of frothing new person who's devouring everything he can get hold of, and us other three being sort of gnarly, sort of long in the tooth Heresy painters. The fact that Heresy had one edition for 10 years is complete nonsense, right? The fact that first edition is like that, it is 10 years. It's absolutely bizarre. You've not seen it with any other GW game, right? An edition.
No change is good change.
4 or 5 years, something like that, right? And I think what it meant was that we ended up going through quite a variety of styles, even though it was technically one edition. And what I thought would be interesting to do was go back, look at it from the start, see how it's developed, and then maybe we could have a chat about where we think it will go as well. But we also wanted to touch on why it's different and why it existed alongside 40k from a hobbying point of view. Obviously, there's crossover, and we'll discuss it. But anyway, enough of that. So I'm gonna take you on a journey through the evolution of Heresy from 2012 up to the current day, and we'll have a natter about when we stop off and see what the attractions are. So back in 2012, first slide, please, Matt. Back in 2012, in fact, before 2012 even, you had a series of books by Forgewell called the Imperial Armor books. And Forgewell was still at this time, albeit very much growing on the up. It was still sort of the little refuge of the treadheads within GW, guys that came from military modelling backgrounds, that type of hobbyist, and they were given this bizarre little skunk works type thing within Games Workshop, and they were allowed to make basically World War II 40k models, right? I know that's a very broad generalization, but it gets the point across. And most of the books to begin with were tended to be focused on infantry, right? Maybe they were Inquisitors, maybe they were Guard, we saw Krieg, we saw the Elysian drop troops, things like that. And then we got the Badab Wars books, which was a pair of books that came out over a year that focused on a big marine-only civil war that happened. I forget when it was, M36 or something like that, M37, late on. So the focus in these books all of a sudden wasn't Krieg models, wasn't Macarius tanks, wasn't stuff that looked like it could be our future. It was Space Marines. So all of a sudden we saw lots of Space Marines painted in that style. So here's this lovely, one of my favorite posters, all the different chapters of the Black. And again, this was a forerunner of what would, I think, become a huge influence on many Heresy painters, right? Which is the color plates that we would get in the books. You know, I know, Andy, you base a lot of your painting off artwork, right? You know, and we chatted, I think,
color
only today.
Alive,
it was either today or yesterday. We were chatting about, oh my God, color plates are incredible. I want to do this one. I want to do this one. And this was sort of really the start of it. We start seeing these different armor marks, Mark IVs creeping in there, you know, things like that. So what I wanted to do was, you know, if you think about what that Contemptor looks like, why was it so different? Why was it this? Well, if we have a look at what so 2012, right? This is what was in the Space Marine Codex in 2012. So 6th edition had just started. So if you've got those slides, Matt, we can compare this Contemptor. Not really, no edge highlighting, nothing like that. Lots of damage. Quite a simple scheme, right? The details aren't necessarily painted, all of that. And then this is what we're presented with in 40k, right? So you know, an heavy metal style, the what it was at the time, which is exactly what we come to expect from heavy metal, right? So Andy, you can explain these a bit more. Like if you were describing how these are painted, what's the deal?
I think that you know, the heavy metal thing is to make the models look as good as possible, right? For the advertising, and I think well defined, neat, clean, vibrant shows off the sculpts, and it is best for the, you know, the mainstream appeal or whatever. But I think Forgewell got the freedom, right? Because they're a little offshoot, and they got all those guys like Phil that could kind of do what they want. And I think they had more freedom, and they could do a style that fitted those models. So I think you could focus on weathering, whereas the main studio, you just can't, because when you're a company and a brand, actually this is your brand, and heavy metal is so important for the Warhammer brand. But as an offshoot, I think, like, you know, you could explore more, go all these little crazy things in Badab, and you could also explore the aesthetic and a more gritty look. You didn't have to be, you know, perfectly neat. I guess the Forgewell management were like, you don't have to do edge highlights. And they did.
That's it. And I think the big difference there is, of course, with heavy metal, you have a dedicated salaried team that paint. The Forgewell stuff was painted by the guys at Forgewell. You know, that Contemptor, I'm pretty sure, is Mark Bedford. And I think it was just one of his models. You know, Phil is obviously an incredible painter and hobbyist.
They sculpt them as well, right?
And they sculpt them and paint them. And it's just this, especially back then, Forgewell was just this bizarre little thing that existed within Games Workshop, right?
It's like a shed at the back of the factory.
It really was, right?
All the neckbeards hang out.
But you had just some of the most incredible people.
Yeah.
Will Hayes did the Contemptor. Will Hayes does the best walkers in Warhammer. That's hands down Will Hayes, and that, you know, that's why we got Contemptor, Derridio, Leviathan. They're the best. You got people like him, and then you got people like Phil, who really pioneered and brought forward the hairspray technique, which is all about weathering. So you've just got these different skill sets and backgrounds. Then that develops this offshoot, I think.
Absolutely. And again, I can't stress enough how, and admittedly, Forgewell, you kind of have to look for it. A lot of people would play 40k and this, that, and the other, and have no idea about Forgewell, right? So you have to go looking for it. But should you come across it, it is so utterly different to everything you would be seeing in White Dwarf and your codexes and heavy metal and whatnot. So straight away, it's jumping out, right? It's Marines done differently. And when you've seen a lot of Marines, it takes something to make you stop, right? You know, remember when we saw the first like NMM Blood Angels and things like that, or Garrus Blood Angel squad painted in that I don't know what the style's called. You know what I mean? The super reflective and
really rendered,
and all that. Yeah, really highly rendered, exactly. You know, and now we're seeing it in a completely different way with this Contemptor. So we got with the Badab, we got the Contemptor, we got a few of these different armor mark kits, and the novels, the Heresy novels, had been out for about 6 years by this point, right? So the novels come out a long time before the game did, and they start dropping these kits, and everyone's like, are they fucking going to do Heresy? Do you think they're going to do it? And obviously, you know, it's the message boards back then, unless we didn't have as much social media, then it was like, you fucking do Heresy? Like, no, it's nothing to do with Heresy. It's don't look this way, look over there. It's nothing to see. And then bang, we get Heresy. But I thought it'd be worth looking before we sort of go into the black books and things like that. And by the black books, I mean the evolution of Imperial armor, which became the Heresy black books. That's where the resources went in. So these huge sort of campaign based tomes, color plates, this, that, and the other. But I want to try and stick to the painting and whatnot. There was 2 books, the Forgewell Model Masterclass books, and these came out around this time, a little earlier actually, I think. And I think if we got any shots from in to sort of illustrate, I'm sure people, here we go, we'll know what we're talking about. So these books were largely written by Phil Soshinskas, and I think Mark Bedford contributed a few of his projects in there as well, particularly in the second one. But as I said before, Phil was this renowned painter when it came to scale modeling, right? You know, he'd already done these incredible award-winning dioramas and miniatures and things for that. And then he goes and writes these amazing books, you know, which give you a sort of insight into all these different techniques that have been around for decades, right? But again, still, I think if you gave them to a lot of people who paint Warhammer now, they would find them utterly confusing, because they were using stuff that we didn't see in most hobby shops, right? And by saying most hobby shops, I mean Games Workshops. Now, if you went into your normal railway type shop, you probably find most of this stuff. But I'm talking about things like oil paints, enamel paints, brands like MIG, weathering pigments. Andy mentioned hairspray technique, using inks and all this sort of thing. But so back when these came out, I think, GW still did inks. But what you had in these books, I say, was this exposure to all these different products and these different techniques. Now, as Heresy progressed and as the company progressed, understandably, they stopped advertising other people's products, and wherever possible, they tended to make their own or produce similar looking effects using their products, which would work better, you know, varying degrees of success, right? But these books were my way back in, you know, big time. I'm pretty sure all 3 of you have picked them up and looked through them, right?
I dare to say I got them the year they came out. I want to find out the year. I'm trying to double check the year.
It's going to be around, I think the first one's got to be around 10, maybe.
Yeah.
2010. It was earlier.
Yeah.
I've only gone through them. I've only had scans of them because.
Right. Oh, they're out of print, aren't they?
Oh, they're well out of print. Yeah. And they're about 120 quid on eBay.
And they are great. You know, again, the stuff that's contained within them. If you go to a hobby shop and look for the various weathering magazines on the different scale miniatures, they've got all this stuff in. But it's nice to see it presented on models you're familiar with, right? In a universe you're familiar with.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to have a 6-page spread on assembling your tracks, things like that, right? We can just have fun and look. All right, we can mix this pigment up with this and flick it on, and you get mud. You know, it's they're huge. But again, I wanted to bring them up because this was the stuff that the guys who were painting Heresy and presenting Heresy to us for the first time, these are the techniques they were using. So just completely different to what we were seeing from
2008, by the way.
Right, there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very different. So that they had different tools available to them than your heavy metal team did, and that's why we ended up getting these different products. So yeah, I hope that sort of set the scene now for when we finally get our Heresy books. So when you guys, and I said to Andy and Rich initially, when you came into and started painting your Heresy stuff, was it this stuff that was inspiring you, or were you coming from outside and simply bringing your styles onto Heresy models? Rich,
do you want to go first? I'll go first. I'd always been aware of the two different mediums because I was always into military modeling anyway. Back in the day, that's what I did before I did Warhammer. And then when I got into Warhammer, by nature of just looking at White Dwarf, the codexes, army books, all that kind of thing, my painting, I just started to paint them to try and replicate that, as we all did. We tried to replicate the things that we liked, that we saw. But when I generally can't remember when I saw these for the first time, but I think it was in a Games Workshop. I went to Games Workshop Carlisle way back when I first saw these, and I was like, hold on, you can paint Games Workshop stuff like military modeling. So I was automatically like, wow, this is so different to what I've done before. And it was so, it merged the two for me because I love painting historical miniatures, but I'm not overly enamored with the miniatures. Like, it's fun to do, but once I finish with them, I don't like, you can't do anything with them, which sounds silly because the amount of models we paint that we don't do anything with. But I can never get into the story, which sounds even more ridiculous because they're actually real. But I can't get into the story behind it as much. So for me, mixing those two mediums together was great. And the first, Andy actually introduced me to Heresy. And he said, "Oh, have you seen Horus Heresy?" And he showed me what it was when it was painted. Yeah. You showed me a Contemptor for the first time. We'd only been hanging out for about a month. And you showed me it. I was like, "What the fuck is that?" He's like, "Oh, it's a Contemptor Dreadnought." I was like, "Where the what?" And then he showed me Forgewell and Heresy, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And at the time, it was all painted in this style, and I instantly, you instantly bite, and you see someone, you're like, "Yeah, that's me, 100%, that's me." Because all this stuff using all these different techniques, other than just paint, just really, really appealed. Just as someone who had messed around with different products when I was painting like Games Workshop plastic things, I tried because that's how I started. I had all my old military modeling paints and stuff, and when I bought the Warhammer models, that's what I painted them with to start with. So this was just kind of connecting the two for me.
Nice. And what about you, Andy? Because you would have been, so you came back in wanting to competition paint and paint to the highest level, and you'd done your Blood Angels squad, had you? Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember the timeline. Yeah. I think I did my Sons of Horus before I entered the squad, because I think I entered a Sons of Horus Dreadnought the same year I entered the squad and didn't win with the Dreadnought.
But you would have painted those in a very different style to these books, right?
Yeah, I've got two experiences because I bought these books when they came out, because I did the hobby 2006 to 2009. And these books came out in 2008, and I had all the Imperial Armors, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then this came out, and I got this, and I just thought, that looks so insanely good. I can't do that. I don't know how. Even though I had the instructions, I didn't want to do it. And I think it's so different. I'll let you know. Think about it in 2008. It's so different to now. You didn't have like loads of YouTube videos and seeing people doing it like on a video and going, actually, that doesn't look too bad. But also, and this will come on to my next bit, I didn't see any hobbyists doing it, because I went in my local shop and nobody was doing it. You look in White Dwarf, nobody was really doing it. And then you go, just no one was. You didn't have Instagram where you could look at loads of people and you go, oh, actually, loads of people are doing this. So, yeah, I'll have a go at that. And then the same actually was when I tried Sons of Horus. And I think it was 2014, maybe 2013 when I started Sons of Horus. And I had such a bad time because I bought the shoulder pads for for Sons of Horus, and the thickness of the trim didn't match the Marines at all. And I thought, who's designed this crap? Because you put them on, and one had a really thick band and one had a really skinny band on the Mark IV. And I was like, these are Mark IV shoulder pads, and they don't match Mark IV shoulder pads. What is this? So that really cheesed me off. And then I tried the decals, and I couldn't.
Notoriously bad decal sheet, that wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't work at all. And then in my latest contemptor video, you see me having a go, and I still can't get them to work. So it wasn't my fault. But anyway, yeah, I guess I was afraid to do, not afraid, but no one around me, and I didn't see people really doing weathering. So I just didn't really know, or didn't really pursue it, because it just didn't have that kind of help, I guess. So I did them. I just tried to get the right green, and kind of got it right, but a little bit too vibrant. But yeah, I didn't really do much weathering because I wasn't exposed to it enough. So it was interesting.
That's a nice point. So that was sort of what I was trying to get at with that idea of what tools people had available to them at the time, and exactly like you say, you had to really go out of your way, as in not into a Games Workshop, to get a lot of this stuff, right? And exactly as you say, if you wanted to learn to paint the Games Workshop way, so the typical working in triads, layering, that idea, it was very simple to do, right? You would be able to find someone who could show you how to do that. And that lends itself quite well to a book-based tutorial as well, right? Other than if we ignore what the hell happens between slide 3 and slide 4 for the, in the instructions. But yeah, again, these masterclass books, these techniques, they do look quite intimidating because it's layer upon layer upon layer of these different things. And I think as Heresy progressed, as YouTube became a much bigger thing for an educational tool, and as people like ourselves were going out there running painting classes on these techniques and stuff, all of a sudden Heresy was a perfect storm, wasn't it? There was this huge evolution within our hobby over the sort of 10 years, certainly the first, say, 5 years of Heresy, right? There was a massive explosion in everything, just changed. Games Workshop changed how they did things, social media, all that sort of thing. It was huge. But yeah, initially it was all these bizarre, strange little things, which had in fact been done for decades by anyone that had done anything other than Games Workshop. So it wasn't necessarily that strange. But so fast forward those couple of years, and it's establishing itself. But before we sort of jump as to when it was, in my opinion, its peak, why do you think it was so appealing to people? And if we take the idea of contrarianism, right? People just wanting to do something, people being disillusioned, disenfranchised with 40k and wanting to do something different. Take that away from it. Think of it more from a positive decision of why did people choose to try and do their hobby more in what was presented to us for Heresy. And I don't necessarily mean these model masterclass books, because the models in these masterclass books are done to a very, very high standard. If we look back at things like that Contemptor model and the ones that we tended to get in black books, they were a much simpler standard, right? Why? What do you think it was that appealed to people that made them choose to paint differently, to forego that heavy metal style?
Do you think it's something to do with the sort of it validated that painting style? Because up to that point, there was the heavy metal painting style, which was kind of all that was published. I mean, you had people's armies that were published in White Dwarf, but those were imitations, a slightly lesser standard than heavy metal, but they were painted to that same style. I think by releasing these books and showing these different techniques for people that were just really interested in painting their models in a slightly different way, it gave them the option and it legitimized it, because it's 40k sci-fi models that are painted in a historical way. And that was personally, that was always the thing that I liked about it. It was, I've always been interested in that kind of grim, dark style of painting, but there was never any real, at that point anyway, definitely there wasn't real emphasis on grim, dark painting within the hobby, and there wasn't really a lot of people doing it. And for me, these sort of books, even though they are a much higher standard, they were kind of like the precursor to a lot of grimdark painting, because they were the first time you saw people using powders and oils and all that on their 40k models. So I think it just gave people that were interested in that style of painting just an option. And some people just dived on it, and some people never look back. Some people, that's how they paint now.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, there's a real historical sort of style of this painting, which I think when all these tanks and Forgewell was probably becoming a bit more accessible, because I don't know about you, but I always found it like this kind of mystery. The website was useless. Especially in like the early 2000s, it was almost impossible to buy stuff from, and you had to go through like their catalog or phone them up or whatever. But like, I think those tanks coming out, and they were presented in that way of a more historical sort of style, so more people from maybe that sort of crowd kind of maybe branched over to sort of the Heresy stuff, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, they always existed, didn't they? I mean, even if we look right back to like late 90s, early noughties, we'd have people like Warwick Kinrad with the Zaragrad stuff, Ian Hislop. Those guys were clearly treadheads, and were bringing it in. But yeah, as you say, it was never presented as the. Yeah, I think it's an interesting point both of you made. Like, it's I don't know if validation's the right word for it, but it was thrusting it, wasn't it, into as to becoming like a genuine option for how you could paint Warhammer models.
Yeah, it was bringing a new option in that hadn't been presented before in that sort of GW sphere.
Absolutely. What about you, Andy?
I think it's like, for me, I think it's rooted in the narrative, because I sort of love chaos, and particularly people like Abaddon, who were so important in the 90s on the front cover of like the Chaos Codex. So I grew up with all this stuff and knew these characters as a kid, and that's ingrained in you. Then you come into it as an adult, and then it's this new Heresy game. You're like, well, what's this? This is before all that stuff you love. That narrative, this is the before bit. Okay. And it's the same mindset of you kind of want to delve into more detail and knowing the past and the fluff and the background. And then you start to think, well, this is like a really long war, and they're not going to be shiny and new, are they? And I think it's just like quite an adult part of the hobby. And I think if you go down that little path of discovering the Heresy, you think about, well, what should they be like? They shouldn't be brand new. These guys have been fighting a long time, so maybe I should put some weathering on. That's like kind of where I'm at. But I think it's discovering that little niche within our niche hobby anyway. And if you've got down that point and you've got that intrigued, you're gonna be thinking in this way and deep diving. And I think you're gonna get to a logical conclusion that they probably should have some weathering and look knackered, and that's cooler. And yeah, certainly for me, it was really nice to see and open up to that stuff. And it didn't take me a long time to start doing weathering, but I definitely remember the split of not really getting it because no one was doing it, and just seeing this thing. And I think the coolest thing for me was just seeing Sons of Horus and be like, no way, this is where Abaddon comes from. I want to know everything about this. This is super cool. And that's why I fell in love with Sons of Horus then, and why I kind of still love them. So yeah, I just think for me, it just goes down this little path of, your love for Warhammer, wanting to know that, and you just want to deep dive, and you want it to be really grim dark and get involved in that. So I think that's where it comes from.
Nice. Those are excellent answers. The chat's echoing you guys quite a lot. People saying like feels more historical, like grubby, a bit dirty, realism in inverted commas, sort of fits that. Which I think is absolutely fair. I think it legitimized, didn't it, this dirty concept, right? This dirty, darker painting style, right? Because again, up until then, everything was judged against heavy metal within Games Workshop. Everything you did was, is it heavy metal standard? There was either yes or no, basically, right? Well, all of a sudden we now have, and this is just my opinion, all of a sudden we now had a different standard to judge things by, a different yardstick to judge things by. Also, I said it before, I got back in, and the first model I painted was a big Titan, and I used hairspray, enamels, oils, airbrush, all the rest of it. So that, you know, I don't really, that was a very easy leap then into Heresy. But one of the things I found was that actually it was a lot of fun painting that way. Because it was, you know, using different products and stuff is cool. It's frustrating sometimes, like, because they behave so differently, you know, whereas generally if you're sticking to GW paints, you know, you've got thicker paints and thinner paints, but they're still acrylic paints, right? But you'd have to use your enamels differently to your oils, to your acrylics and varnish and all this and the other. Another reason I wonder if it was so popular was that it was, I think, far more achievable or attainable to reach a certain standard of that style of painting. Someone said, Jason put it in the chat a little bit more bluntly, you can hide your mistakes with weathering. But
I mean, you can. So
you can, but you know, if we I certainly bang on about this when I'm asked about it. So don't ask me about it. But is this idea of painting better, right? Being a better painter means very different things to different people, doesn't it? And actually, I think at the core of it is people simply want to enjoy their painting more, right? They want to have more fun with it, whether that's achieving this, that, or the other. And if you can paint your army in such a way that it looks good enough to mix in with all the other armies that you see, and particularly in Heresy's case, that you see in the official published books, right? You know, it wasn't heavy metal stuff, most of it. It was just normal, quote, painters using these sorts of techniques in varying degrees. And I think that must be appealing, right? Because all of a sudden it's achievable. I can paint like that. I can have my army look like the stuff in the books that I love. And actually with very, because it was a very simple process, right? You didn't need to be incredible with oils, right? You simply needed to know how to create a wash. It's one skill, and actually you could learn it and do it. If you wanted to push it, you could learn to pull an oil streak, but that's it, right? And all of a sudden that's all you could choose to never do anything more with oils ever and still paint really cool, you know, miniatures. So I wonder if there was an element of that with it.
Yeah, I definitely think there's like painting pressures, and I think we said there's a whole episode on that. I basically, the last couple of weeks, a lot of people have been saying I want to do Heresy, and I'm just chatting to them, and I've kind of been encouraging them, like, you know, you don't have to edge highlight all the Marines. You can actually just do them a flat color and then go straight into the weathering, and actually it's not so intimidating then, because a lot of people are like, I'm getting a box set with 40 Space Marines in. That is not possible. But it is if you do these certain styles, and I love variation, and you don't have to only do one style. And for me, I really like, I'm doing my Techless at the moment, which couldn't be further from the Heresy style. And then I'm going back to Heresy, and I'm like, I want to do some battle damage because it's fun, it's relaxing. You can still do it well. It's not easy, but it is a more relaxing style for me personally. And I think it's really cool to encourage people and take away some of those painting pressures. You don't have to do things this way. You don't have to put a white dot on your eye lens. You don't have to highlight every edge. Actually, it can look cool this way. And all those things look cool. But yeah, there's not like a one way you have to do it. Don't feel pressured.
And that's it, isn't it? And there's a lot, this is what I was trying to say, there's a lot more, I guess there's a fat middle when it comes to this style of painting, right? Whereas if you're doing heavy metal, it's not that good, 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 bang, heavy metal. You know, like there's almost not a middle ground, right?
It's hard.
It's
very
hard. It's really because it is so accurate, right? It's so precise the way that stuff's painted, and whether, you know, maybe you don't have the time to put in to get that to that level, or maybe you simply don't have the capabilities of it physically, you know, for whatever reason. But within this style of painting, there's room for everyone. You know, there's people like Phil Soshinskas who can take it to award-winning levels, and then there's people like Bob who, you know, can spray it, rattle can it one color, give it an oil wash, sponge on a bit of brown, sponge on a bit of silver, paint the eyes in, paint the bolt gun and wash it, and it looks cool. Like, it looks good enough to go in the black books, and that's pretty awesome, isn't it? So that was my sort of I hadn't considered a few of the things you guys said, so it was really interesting to hear that whole it's because it's relates more to the historical side and the deep dive. That's really interesting. I think the chat agree with you as well. But yeah, and I mean, obviously now you've got a billion tutorials, so you can paint however you want. It's easy peasy. But we didn't back. You know, it's 10 years ago. We didn't. It's come on so fast in the last 10 years. It really has. And it's important. I think we don't forget that we've been a part of that, which is exciting. To do as well. So with all that in mind, so now we've been introduced to this style of painting, and then YouTube explodes. People are suddenly mixing their skill sets, and Heresy's starting to get a defined official aesthetic, if you will. It goes, all the stuff we'd seen for Krieg and Elysians and Imperial Armor stuff was very, very military modeling, right? Almost no metallics, which is a sin when it comes to painting Warhammer models, right? Everything painted. But all of a sudden we had Space Marines who actually were, even if you're painting them in that style, these are knights in space, right? They're more fantastical. There's more things to paint on them. So you almost had this melding of the two, heavy metal and military modeling, and it coming together and created, I think, this very cool new style. So have we got the Golden Demon pictures, Matt?
Yep.
So if we consider the mid to late noughties as the heyday for Heresy, and we consider Golden Demon as the pinnacle, if you want to call it that, of painting and whatnot, and you were getting amazing models like this put out that just so happened to be painted by three of us on this show.
Come on. That's cool. I never saw this. I didn't see this slide coming, but so that is very cool.
Cult of Paint was kind of formed from this trio here. So this would have been 2016, 2015, something 16. Like that. 16.
15 was,
this was the vehicles category for Heresy Golden Demon. And you've got Andy's Fellblade there, my Stormblade, and Rich's Thanatar. And it was exciting. But this was us, all three of us pushing ourselves. I think 3 different styles as well, but I think they all show to different degrees the influence of that military modeling, right? Coming in there. And I feel like, sorry, go on.
That tank you painted, best thing you've ever done, man. I love that fucking thing.
I mean, that sucks, mate. The fact that that's 8 years ago or whatever.
It's not the best thing. It's not the best thing you've
far
done.
Better. I hated things far better.
I think, okay,
Henry, it's just because he likes Iron Warriors this week.
It's my favourite because it's Iron Warriors. It's like a military style, and it's such a badass. I love that thing.
But that is just following the military masterclass books. The model masterclass books. All of the techniques in there are in those books, and it was great fun. Sort of using that as a textbook and then putting your own spin on it.
Here's a question though, Henry. Why haven't you done the plasma with OSL so the whole thing is blue?
Okay, so that's a great one. So Rich, but for instance, Rich has done OSL, hasn't he, on his Thanatar? Yeah. For me,
it's terrible.
That's not real Heresy, Rich.
Yeah,
get out.
But it's a very point. That is a real, for me anyway. That not using OSL was a very key part of what I felt was, quote unquote, the peak Heresy aesthetic of this time.
Yeah.
I don't dislike OSL at all. I just didn't want it in my Heresy stuff. Give me a Skaven model. I think it looks rad on it. Undead models, all that stuff's really cool. But I didn't want it in Heresy. That's not to say I don't think the Thanatar looks fab. But I think if you look at these 3 models, certainly Rich's Thanatar could belong in a classic Golden Demon, right? Like it's different enough, but it's still, I don't think it would scare people, right? I then think if you go to Andy's tank and then mine, it gets further and further away from that a bit, right? So it still, to me, feels like they were hitting the Heresy aesthetic, all three of them. And this isn't meant to be like some wank each other off self-congratulatory nonsense to do with it. It's quite nice that the three of us did these models. And I think they're a very good representation of what peak Heresy style became. The stuff that people were producing around this time, the game itself was in its best place. The releases were thick and fast. More sculptors were always coming on board. The weekenders were happening. Everything was a rosy place. And then a variety of things happened and it changed. But that's the whole point. Cycles, right? Everything has and a game's last for 10 years. This is my point I made at the beginning. First edition's 10 years. It's nonsense. Of course, you're going to get lots of weird things happening within that time. So I sort of. This is now what the people that are entering competitions and putting their heads above the parapet to say, we want to be judged. We consider this to be the best looking Heresy stuff.
I think it's really interesting that at this time we were all entering them, and the styles, however similar, they've got similar aesthetics. They're still very different. Like you mentioned, OSL, like that Thanatar is highlighted to death, but it's still oiled at the same time.
And I love that, mate.
Yeah, it was that mix, I think, of we were still kind of staying true to the original aesthetic that Heresy was when we were all there at the start, but you can start to see that sort of almost heavy metal style just creeping in different aspects. Like we're still
it was becoming Warhammer-fied, wasn't it? That's it. Right? It was military modelling was getting the Warhammer treatment, and I think I love it when you see clashes of forming new styles, right? Because you would never see, like, if we entered these three things into a military modelling contest, they would annihilate us, right?
Yeah, they really would.
But it was this lovely place where you could push those elements, but still be playing Warhammer.
Yeah.
I think what we had now, sort of at this time, was much greater accessibility to various tools and, as we said, tutorials. And I think airbrushing in particular became no longer an uncommon tool for people to possess and people to be able to do. And we sort of then see, as I said, we then see things start to change. As the airbrushing becomes more prevalent, I think we started to see that pushed past the point where it was still recognizably early Heresy stuff, right? It was very heavily modulated, very heavily saturated. It became, to me, we started seeing an awful lot of people that were simply showing off airbrushing. No longer were they using it as part of the process.
Yeah.
And this is pure personal. Yeah, it's purely, personal, but this is why I felt like the stuff I saw around this time was my favorite. Me and Andy talked about it a lot. Like it's you would look at a model and you wouldn't necessarily think of any single technique, right? You would just enjoy the model and look at it. A lot of the stuff I see now that's put out there as amazing painted Heresy stuff, to me, looks overdone. It looks overmodulated, oversaturated, not tasteful. It's a bunch of techniques just thrown at a model, as opposed to trying to create. And that might sound really wanky. I appreciate that, but trying to create an aesthetic. I'll stop digging.
I get
you can jump in.
I get what you're saying, and I think that I was actually going to talk about these three, and I think going back to that, there's commonalities and there's different things. So I definitely think it's up to you, what your Heresy aesthetic is.
Yes,
and I think that Rich's got lots of edge highlighting on his Thanatar. But it still fits in an OSL, and you've got those things, you can write them down, but it still works and fits because it's got weathering, it's got things like that, and then yours doesn't. And then I think what's interesting, my Fellblade, is there's not a chance I would paint it in that style anymore because how I want to paint has changed. But I do think my personal taste is I don't like stuff overly modulated and overly rendered either with the airbrush. And I like desaturated color schemes for Heresy. I think, Emperor's Children, purple. It's purple. It's not a very military model, is it?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that quite a desaturated purple and you put some weathering on it, then I think that's fantastic. But I definitely think that if you like vibrant and bright colors and you think it's cool, like having stuff rendered, then of course go for it. And there's definitely no way you have to do it. But my favorite things in Heresy are flatter color schemes, more desaturated, and lots of weathering, because I think that looks cool. But, okay. So I think that's what you were kind of.
No, it's spot on. And actually, what I was wanting to do was call myself out on it later on in the discussion, to illustrate a point, basically, of the fact that there is not one style for painting Heresy, and actually there is plenty of room to do it in whatever your personal style is, and whether that's sympathetic or not is opinion, right? If you like how it looks, that is a cool model, right? And I think we're going to be seeing an awful lot more styles coming in. But I want to discuss it in a little bit. There's a couple more things I want to get to before we talk about that. And basically, I call myself out for being an arsehole. So not thanks, bud. Not long after this, or maybe even around this time, we started to see a couple of big plastic releases for Heresy. We saw the Betrayal at Calth box, where we got Plastic Mark IV, Plastic Tartaros, Plastic. What else did we get? Was that when we got the really dread the original Plastic Contemptor? Was that Calth?
Yeah.
I've got a question, right?
Yeah.
It was a rumor, big rumor. Don't know this from official sources, that Forgewell were annoyed that the Plastic Contemptor was really good.
It's a good bit of source, that. Yeah, go on.
And they were like, make it more static, because otherwise, I can. And then I'm thinking, is the Contemptor we just got, was it made then? Was it made all the way back then? And they were like, no, make it more static. Probably.
You need to have a look at the see if there's a date stamp on the sprues or on.
I did, yeah. It's the new one, but it doesn't matter. I don't know. Mate. I'm with Andy on that. Like, I love a bit of that conspiracy nonsense.
Yeah.
All this, like, there's another great one with the Custodes, but we'll talk about that in another episode. But yeah, we had Calth and we had Prospero, and now all of a sudden we see Heresy miniatures painted in a heavy metal box art style, albeit heavy metal has evolved by this point because it is 6 years later or whatever. So we're seeing a little bit of weathering and stuff on the Praetor's capes and stuff like that, but this is still very much heavy metal now, right?
And on the Ultras, there's a lot of chips, and I think this was one of the first ranges done by heavy metal with a lot of battle damage. And this is heavy metal evolving, which is fantastic. And I just think this is brilliant. I think Max would have helped with a lot of this, because he was into all that weathering and stuff. Absolutely.
So now we're starting to see that evolution, right, of the two of the different styles coming together. I'd be really interested to know why, and maybe we should look into this for another episode, is when we had that other big change in the sort of late 90s, early noughties. It'd be interesting to know why that happened. Was it person-led? Was it product-led? Was it whatever? But getting back to Heresy itself. So now all of a sudden we're seeing Heresy presented officially in a very different way. Did it bring in a lot more people from 40k and stuff? Well, you'd have to anecdotally say there was a real explosion in Heresy when these boxes came out. Was that due to the painting style, or was it due to the fact that all of a sudden it was affordable to have 40 tactical marines?
This box set,
right?
Plastic box set.
Yeah, but it was presenting Heresy to normal, quote unquote, people that weren't on the Forgewell website. You could walk into Games Workshop and this would be in there. So all of a sudden Heresy was being shown in a different light and a different style. And it was around this time, or a little bit later, that the Forgewell studio expanded their artists. So they brought in a few European artists. One of them, I think, was Pedro. I want to say, painted painted the Custodes, right? So have we got any slides of those, Matt? Right. now all of a sudden we see another completely different style within Heresy. So we've got the quite I won't say basic, but the quite simple techniques, well applied stuff we used to be seeing in the black books. We've seen the heavy metal version of Betrayal at Calth, things like that. We've seen what members of the community are creating when they've got more time and this, that, and the other. And now you've got the official, company producing and presenting miniatures in a completely different manner again for Heresy. And I know you're a big fan of these, Andy, right?
I think Borja and Pedro are amazing painters, and I liked Pedro's stuff before he joined the company. And I just remember asking about how he'd done this gold, and him teaching me about adding matte color like Rhinox hide, flat brown into the shadows of gold, so the shadows are matte, and using stippling technique for true metallics to make it look more mottled, and really cool, interesting stuff that isn't military modeling. It's not heavy metal. It's another style again, and it still fits into the Heresy, and it's another way to make your gold look good, to render things. And Valdor, I don't know who did Valdor out of the two of them, to be honest, but I'm sure Pedro had a lot to do with the gold on all the tanks and the really dark red. But those guys did a lot of vibrant, bright miniatures and stuff, and they adapted that. And I think they did a great aesthetic for Custodes, because the red is so desaturated on the tanks. It's really deep. It's not like vibrant, and the gold's fantastic. The colors killed a little bit with that matte brown, and that's really cool, because that is a completely different style, like you said. And for the better, you've got another option, a way of doing it. And I remember talking to those guys about their techniques, and I just picked up stuff, and I still will listen to that advice. One little sentence they might have told me at the weekender, and I go, stick with it and try it. Stipple metallic, stuff like that. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Heated Peach saying in the chat, he loves seeing the Custodes army in person in the exhibition hall. It does jump out at you. And this is what I was saying when I said before about the early Black Book stuff being basic. What all I mean by that is it was product led, right? It was powders, oils, sponging, that sort of thing, right? And what it created was great looking mass armies. So when you'd go and look at the displays, and there'd be hundreds, which again is what Heresy's about, right? Hundreds of Marines and stuff. It looked fantastic, right? It was really cool. It was really achievable. Awesome. Now we're seeing real top tier painters getting to have a go at driving the style of it. And this was it was so unlike anything I think we'd seen from Games Workshop, these Custodes.
They're brilliant.
And it just and I think it challenged a lot of the community when they first saw this. It was different to anything we'd seen, just as probably the Heresy style challenged a lot of people that were sort of 40k fans, heavy metal fans. This, I think, challenged probably both camps, because you were bringing in a style that neither were familiar with. It was not heavy metal, and it's not traditional Heresy. But now, 5-6 years later, actually you can see a lot of this style and the impact and the influence that's had on notable painters, right, within the Heresy community, this sort of the international Heresy community. I think some of the Golden Demons we've seen for Heresy, but also just some of the people that are some of those accounts on Instagram, the gold in particular. It's a really interesting way of doing it, isn't it? I love these so much. God, these Terminators are the best models, man. And Valdor. I know Valdor was very polarizing. I absolutely love that model.
He's great. He's the best Custode.
You're not a fan, Rich?
No, Terminators are amazing, purely because they're absolutely mahoosive, and the kits were just lovely.
Yeah.
But Valdor was a flat no for
me. Pretty impressive. So that sort of brings us up to where we are now, with the fact that the Forgewell, or the Specialist Games team, now has 10 permanent heavy metal painters and 4 we'll call them army painters, but those guys are painting to a standard far above anything we've seen from army painting before. 14 people. Now I know they're not all doing Heresy, but that's a vast difference to getting the guys that were sculpting the models to paint them, right?
Yeah.
So what on earth do you think we're going to see, in the future coming from it? If we look at, I don't know if we've got any slides of the new set, have we, Matt?
Yep.
Oh, you're a legend. You really are. Talk about the amalgamation or whatever of the styles coming together. You've got this set and these painted, which are just brilliant. There is so much more depth to the armor, but it's not heavy metal. But there's weathering, but it's not true military modeling. It's really fascinating, I think, to see it. Do I want to paint like it? No, but I can still think it's super cool. So what do you guys think? What do you think we're going to be seeing? Look at the weathering. Like some of the stuff where they've used acrylics to do, where you would use oils and use powders and things, they've used acrylics for. It's yeah. I'll let you talk. Sorry.
I don't know. I think that there's so many options now, and like I said, I think when I was younger painting, there wasn't enough things to look at. Well, I think there's so much on. I think you go on Instagram now and you see you'll see Heresy done in different ways. And I always say to people, I don't know what style to do. And it's like, well, what do you like the look of, and pursue that.
Yeah.
And I think that people will see us painting Heresy, other people painting Heresy in another way, and they'll just look at one and gravitate towards that. So I hope there's a big variety, but this is a very, very nice blend and happy medium, because I think it shows off the product, because everything's very, clean, as in, it's just really nicely painted.
It's all separated well, yeah, isn't it? You can make everything out, all the details.
Defined, it's readable, it's clear, but it has got weathering on every element. And that is really helpful, because then people look at it and go, oh, what's this weathering? And that's what I didn't get exposed to. So I was like, what's this weathering stuff? Do I need to do that? Like, will I get told off, and all those things. So I think that it's really cool that they're doing it this way. And I think it's cool they can change for different games. So, if they do Ultramarine Primaris, then maybe they're a bit cleaner and maybe some brighter edges and stuff. But they're obviously open to more stuff, and they're allowed that freedom to go, okay, what's the aesthetic of Heresy is different. But I think there's definitely probably more conversations when they come to paint these projects, and they will decide an aesthetic that best shows off the product but suits what they're going for. And I think it's a very nice happy medium, this.
Absolutely. So let's sort of, I've just seen the time, so let's look at sort of wrapping it up. What style or person or artist, whatever, would you love to see have a go or come into Heresy and show what we've got? I'm going to ask all of you that question. So if you want to have a quick think of it for a minute or two, I'll just go back to that point I was trying to make earlier, where I was saying how I got a little bit not frustrated, but a little bit disenfranchised with the Heresy stuff I was seeing in my threads. It had gone far away from the military modeling style into this very airbrush heavy look. And I was like, oh, it's not cool. It's not Heresy, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't voice this to the people because I'm not a cunt. But, it wasn't what I was loving. I wasn't hitting the like button as often as I used to do. But actually, when you take a step back and you talk to other people and you start to see, it's like when you see let's say a Tau model that's painted in a much more military modeling style, I think it looks incredible. And that's, we're just so used to seeing it that way around. I wonder, maybe a 40k player is going to see Mark 6 Marine painted in this style, which is close enough to heavy metal or the style that they're used to go, oh my goodness, that Heresy model looks incredible. It's not this dirty, grimy, messy model, which a lot of us love. It's a different thing. So that was a big moment for me, sort of going, oh, do you know what, this is a good thing. It is a good thing that everyone's going to have this opportunity to paint, and hopefully it does away with this there's only one way to paint Heresy idea, because actually there's never been one way to paint Heresy. And that was kind of the whole point of why I wanted to put this show together. Heresy's been around 10 years. I can show you 100 different models from those 10 years that are painted completely differently, and they are all Heresy. You know, I could take a load from Games Workshop Forgewell themselves, and they're completely different. I can take them from notable community personalities, and they're all very different. So yeah, that was kind of my ulterior motive, to get it out there.
Well, I feel that
do
about
the
my
fuck
own
you want,
stuff,
basically.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that. Like with mine, I would never do what I used to do. But there's nothing wrong with what I used to do. Like how I did my Ultramarines. Like everyone says, do you regret selling your Ultramarines army? No, because I don't want an army in that style anymore. But it wasn't not Heresy. So I think it's kind of the same. But yeah, even within myself, like doing different stuff. And
that's natural, right? 10 years. Your tastes are going to change, aren't they? Right, over that time. So yeah, it wasn't meant to be a big soapbox pontificating nonsense. Do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. But I just think it's worth saying. So Rich, what about you?
So I'm going to go the complete other way, and I really want to see people like the real, like grimdark aficionados, where they literally lob their box of oils, pigments, and powders and whatnot at it. I want to see what they do with it, because there's always been, like when we started, we already said it, but when Heresy started, there was elements of that kind of grimdark aesthetic in places, but it was a bit more purposeful, like historical modeling is. I want to see the proper grimdark community get hold of this box and see like a grimdark, like Imperial Fists army that is just drowning in rust and like that. I want to see what people do that going that way, because like I think we've seen like the original Heresy style. It'd be nice to see some of these models in that style. So like I cannot wait to do some of the new plastic tanks in a military style. Like that's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to do that. Like this, we've seen it in heavy metal style. Now I want to go the complete other way and see it really fucked up.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything like that before. I don't know. I've seen different, like I've seen different illustrative takes on it. Goodness me. Yeah. But yeah, I've not actually seen anyone do that. What I think you and me are considering proper, quote unquote, grimdark. That would be very interesting.
Paint the box in like 6 days.
Yeah.
That's sort of grit.
That's what Henry did, mate.
Yeah,
true. But yeah, I love the ability with Heresy to do both. Like in the last week, I've painted. I've painted in a style that's insanely neat because I wanted to do it for that model, and I've also got bored of that, so I pulled out a Terminator and decided to do that, like Death Guard, really weathered and oils. So
nice.
The ability to flick between the two is cool.
Nice.
That's really cool. That.
What about you, Matt?
I mean, I'm not sure if I'd want like one person to do something in a certain way, but I'd love to see some of the new tanks done in a proper historical style, like that's ultra realistic, as realistic as you could possibly go. You know, the people that will research what bolts were used on a tank and try to.
That's what I want to
do. I'd love to
send a Spartan to night shift.
Well, I was going to say, or you ultra detail them, right? So actually approach it like a Tamiya kit. And it's a night shift. I mean, I think we're all a big fan of his, but I think it's interesting you guys have specifically not mentioned people as well. I think that's it. Is there's styles. These styles have been around forever, right? Go and look at these styles, and it's great that we've got figureheads or whatever you want to call them of these styles, but carve your own with it as well. You know, painting something grimdark doesn't mean dipping it in a pot of streaking grime. You know, there is more to life than that. You know, weathering something doesn't mean hammering it with a sponge and bolt gun metal. You know, there's room on this, but that I would love to see a super detailed kit.
I've already been thinking about that. The Kratos getting that, because I've recently done a Tamiya 135 kit that I did a load of detailing on. And I was like, oh, if I could do the Kratos and do loads of extra detail on it and do it as a military style one, like that would be amazing.
Yes, that's what I want to see. I want to see someone go to absolute like research town on it, and just you see like a Tamiya kit or something like that, and they're building all the heat pipes properly, and that's what I want to see.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm going to answer it. I would love to see either that sort of cell shade thing we've seen recently cropping up, or
that'd be cool.
That sort of what's his name? Sin City.
Frank Miller.
Yeah, something like that, right? That, or like the animation styles we've been seeing on Warhammer Plus and stuff. Just show me Heresy in different styles. Yeah, I've been in it from before the beginning. I love that military modeling style. I love what it evolved and became and peaked at. That's probably how I will still paint. I will be doing what you guys are saying about the super detailing things. That's where my hobby's going. But I would love to see very, very overly artistic takes on Heresy stuff, which hopefully we'll see now because it's affordable and prevalent, and people can have a go at it. And not risk wasting loads of money or spending money on a resin kit that's a piece of trash.
Excellent, you mean?
Roll the dice, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
You spend what, 100 something quid on a tank, and then 200 quid on the tools to bring it back into alignment.
But you get more value because it takes longer to build. So it's better for the money. But it takes you 2 weeks to build.
Now we're going off. Well, so let's put a pin in that one then. I hope you enjoyed that chat around Heresy. I hope it's obvious that we're very passionate about it. It's nice to get back to one of these shows really getting particularly nerdy about stuff around the paint, and it's been great hearing what the chat's been saying. It's been great hearing what you three have been thoughts are on it as well, to be honest. It's nice to get challenged as well, I think, and that's it. That's probably what I'm most looking forward to for the next few years with it, is to be challenged, like when we saw Pedro's Custodies and things. I want that to happen, and I don't know where that's going to come from. This is why it's very exciting to see. So, guys, haven't got anything to add on that one? No,
don't think so.
But then Dozer Blades are back.
Dozer Blades are back. Yeah.
I've got a question.
Oh,
your tank that you showed from GD, that Dozer Blade on the front of it, did you make that or did you buy it?
No, I made it.
Did you? Fair play. You have to show me how. I want one.
Went into my bits box, mate, and tried to think how a Dozer Blade would work with pneumatics and all the rest of it. Couldn't tell you what kits things are from. Brilliant. I think they're from a Russ maybe, or a Chimera.
Got any photos?
Made them
two together, innit?
Photo. And then the bits in the middle that I made the hydraulics with, again, no idea. They were just in the bits box.
Brilliant.
Wasn't it a razor or something, like bit of an electric razor or something?
No, it was all plastic. I might have used a bit of wiring off. I did used to break open electronics for things like that. Oh, is there a bit of an electric razor on it? No. That bit in the middle isn't. That's from a model. I don't know what model.
So that Andy knows that and you don't.
I can't. Well, it's around the time him and me became sort of mates. So it's talking to him about it. But yeah, it's really
cool.
It's very, very, very cool. More white scars. What's that? Question for you guys. Oh, we must. Let's roll on and take some questions from the chat. Question: will you be using the box for multiple paint jobs, or are you planning to treat it as an army box and do it as a single legion? Yeah. So I think I'll just keep building the scars up. Yes, Jonathan, there's going to be lots more on the white scars. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but people that were involved in the launch of Heresy 2, the content creators, some of that stuff has now started to come out. There's obviously various embargo dates and things for us that we have to adhere to. But you will be seeing lots more about our scars projects. Jagat Icon that Andy did, the box that I did, stuff that we're going to be adding to it.
Do you get them back?
At some point. Yeah. Don't know when, so better get painting some more. Don't know when they're coming back. But yeah, it's going to be more white scars from me. There's going to be more Sons of Horus from Andy, and who else? Yeah, who knows what else? World Eaters from Matt, right? World Eaters, yeah. So that's all in. And who knows from Rich?
I was sitting there talking, and I saw the picture of the Badab War. I was like, "Oh, Mark 6 Raptors."
Shut up.
That would be awesome. That would be Mike French is working on
Iron Warriors, not Alpha Legion, Matt. Iron Warriors, not Alpha
Iron
Legion.
Warriors.
That's nice. Brian, yeah, I don't know that Titan's going to go on Patreon, mate. I need to finish painting it, but I might do a little showcase with it. It's quite a cool kit actually. It took a bit of work to get how I liked it, but the direwolf is it's a nice size. It's a bit bigger than a warhound as well. So yeah, I'll do a little, even if it's just a little spinny showcase video on it. We'll talk about it. But enough time. Let's close it out with the last segment. So, go take a look at what hashtag Paint Cultists have been up to. We create a hashtag Paint Cultists predominantly on Instagram. It's for anyone who watches the show and wants to share their work. If you're looking to follow a hashtag that's going to expose you to different artists, different styles, different miniatures, different genres than your normal sort of feed often does, it's a really, really cool one to follow. And all I do every show is just pick a handful out. There's nearly 10,000 on there now. So I just pick a handful out from the last couple of weeks that caught my eye and show them to the guys, and we just take a look at them. So what's up first, Matt?
First up is...
Yes.
Have to have a bit of heresy, obviously. Love the Deradeo. Love. Like, yeah.
We were talking about it the other day, weren't we, Rich? We were like, we don't want plastic Leviathan, we want plastic Deradeo. Come on!
If we get plastic Deradeo, I am gonna flip my lid, because I remember when it first came out and how like polarizing people were. They're like, it's a boat with a helmet in it. I was like, yeah, it looks sick. So yeah.
Oh, it's nice to see Andy using a word I taught him the other day in the chat. Yes, Samit, come on, Sarum pattern. Hey, you numpty. Lots of iron hands
already, mate.
Lovely. Is there more Lumineth? Yeah, there's loads more Lumineth coming from it. Like we said at the top of the show, but Andy's basically got all 4 of his favourite things have all come out within about 3 months. So he's screwed.
Look in my background. There's Lumineth. Loads of Lumineth.
There's a tree. There's some tree people there, isn't there? On the end there, that lady there.
Tree lady.
And a
cow. Happy cow and a tree lady.
There we go. But yeah, lovely paint job. Spaceballs, always cool.
Well done, Adam.
And Adam, great hobbyist and a thoroughly nice chap as well. So good to see. What's up next? Oh, this is cool.
June.
So this is from June. Just really cool busts. I say it often when I pick the busts to look at. There just seems to be so many now. And like with 3D printing and stuff, like you want a bust of something, you can probably get it, which is rad. And yeah, this is Lady Jessica. Yeah.
That face is amazing.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Marketing.
Yeah. Really, really cool. And I love the armor. I love how they've done the armor.
Yeah, that armor is great. The black leather is incredible.
Really, really nice. So yeah, bit different. And they've even got the classic finger in the shot as well. The best way to present a model.
There was more of it. I cut a bit off.
That's something that me and Matt discovered a lot when we ran the MPO. Was
cropping.
Lot of cropping, a lot of hands in photos. Yeah, but yeah, lovely. Not seen this account before, so can be following that. Oh, hey, that's me. Rich is in the chat. That's lovely. So yeah, it's awesome. Dude.
Nice one, Rich. Great.
Yeah, really, really cool. Right, what's up next? Oh, this one's lovely again.
More Space
Wolves. I know. I've got a bit of a. I was saying to Andy, I think I've had 4/4.5 wobbles over the last couple of days of what I want to do for Heresy. Other than
everyone
the scars.
has, mate.
Yeah,
everyone.
And wolves crop up often, but this is a lovely. I am still on the fence about Primaris. There's a few of the kits that I really, really like, and it's the 2 basic troop types. But I think they completely change when you stick different lids on them. And I've seen a few people use this old Forgewell Imperial Fists head for Space Wolves because it's quite reminiscent of the old, what's it called? Collected Visions artwork and stuff that we used to see from the trading card game. Just, really, really nicely done. And absolutely how I would approach painting Primaris if you could. And Rich, you'll be loving the fact there's Mark III shoulder pads on there. So
love it. Best shoulder pads.
So yeah, lovely. And again, this is a very Heresy style, if you will, right? But now we're seeing it on all miniatures. It doesn't matter on the system, which is awesome. So yeah, a couple more is there, Matt? I think.
A few more, yeah.
obviously wouldn't be an episode without showing the incredible Lucas
Penis.
Goblin Bust. This one, did you happen to have the close-up shot on here or not, Matt?
I
Just
didn't
this one.
pick that one. No.
That's right. No worries. That's fine. This account, I picked this one particularly because they very deliberately had played around with texture, and were sort of quite proud of it, and the face in particular. He's done some great zoomed in shots of it. But yeah, just this model seems to inspire pretty cool paint jobs, doesn't it?
If you paint it, I will give you this model, Henry, but you have to paint it. But
Got a Heresy.
Give it to you and you paint it. Yeah. One day, if you want this model, if you paint it, I'll give it to you.
That's interesting.
But you have to paint it the week I give it to you.
Yeah. Okay. That could be fun. I wonder if someone was doing an introduction to bust painting class soon. That would be really helpful.
No, you do you on it.
I reckon. All right. Yeah. That sounds good.
You said you wanted one of those projects where you just put it together and you just paint it over a couple of days.
No, I think this is a push yourself, right? This isn't a couple days. This is a progression model, right?
Just smash it out, mate.
It's your
By
one.
the way, mate, your beard is looking absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So it's looking really good. What about our last slide, Matt?
So last one, 2 more.
Oh, 2 more. Sorry. Speaking of magnificent facial hair, I just stuck this one in because Robin's tash is just outrageous now. I think Ryan and Robin are playing some Blackstone game or some shit like that, but he's tagged it as paint cultist. But I mean, good lord, the cock dust.
Is that Dick Strawbridge?
Look, I know, right? It's incredible.
It's actually Dick Strawbridge.
Incredible. But yeah, looks like they're having fun there playing Blackstone. I think there was like a 3-year gap.
Robin doesn't.
So yeah, good lads.
Robin looks fucking miserable.
That is Robin happy, isn't it?
I think so.
Their gaming is about as slow as their painting, isn't it? He hasn't finished painting or playing again.
There's the odd thing in the paint cultist hashtag that isn't necessarily to do with painting. So you say it was one more, Matt?
One more.
Oh yeah. Nice bit of gribbly wibbly, grimy, dirty, dark nonsense.
That's cool.
I
want to put my Sylvaneth on them.
Yeah. So this is the. Oh, they're not the fleas. Use the right name, whatever they are. The fleas from the new Necromunda box. I am itching to get my hands or get my hands on the box. I have the box. I need to open it up and get painting it. I've got a lot of ideas for Ash Waste stuff, so that's going to be, I think, a slow grow for me for the rest of the year.
Ash Waste and Heresy in the same month or two. Just go away.
Don't.
Just
like,
stop.
I can say you've had it with the armies, right? It's bad, but I must admit, like a few of the boxes that we're seeing is like, this is all I want to do. You know,
I'm so glad that I wasn't super turned on by anything from Ash Waste, because my favorite Necromunda, my favorite like Games Workshop book, graphic novel is set in the Ash Waste.
Right.
The Redemptionist one where they try around the waste at the start, and if they did a Redemptor gang that was set in the Ash Waste, then
we've got the Redemptor gang. Who knows? You might get your man, whatever his name is.
But he's got a model now, Clovis the Redeemer.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, if that Slaves to Darkness leak we saw, if they'd been, that's coming out next month, I'd be done. That's it. You know, new Slaves to Darkness, Ash Wastes, and Heresy. I'm done. I'm out. You know,
with Heresy, I'm kind of keen to get back into it, but there's nothing that stopped me in my tracks at the moment.
Good.
Like,
stay strong, Rich.
Kill teams are picking up pace a little bit. I swear they're getting more regular, which is terrifying because I'm not getting through them like I was before. So that's a bit worrying. But other than that, no.
Need to book another event, bud. Need to book yourself.
Yeah, this is true.
That seemed to drive you, didn't it?
Well, we might have an event actually, mate.
Oh, there we are then.
Haven't we, Rich? We'll keep that
indeed.
One
there we go. Oh, we'll have to ask him about that in a minute. So yeah, lovely. I think that's it for the slides. So if you want to get in touch with us or you want to see what we're up to, it's all the usual social places, website, email, all the rest of it's all under Cult of Paint. Easy enough to find. So thanks ever so much for joining us, chat. It's been really, really nice. Lots of input on this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't think it's been self-indulgent. I think it's been I feel good. I felt like it was interesting. And ultimately, you know, you want nerdy paint stuff. That's why you're watching. So that's what you're going to get. I can't wait to see what the next 10 years of Heresy is going to bring us. If you're watching this back later on YouTube, don't forget to do the usual thumbs up, subscribe, tell your mates, all the rest of it. We really appreciate all of that. Helps us a lot. Thank you very much for joining me as usual, chaps. Hope you've had fun as well. I know I didn't give you much prep on this one, but I wanted honest takes. Right? Yeah, this is it.
Heresy,
I wanted to see,
bread and butter, mate.
Fire from the hip kind of thing. So yeah, and again, thanks ever so much to the chat. So take care. We'll see you soon.
Ciao.
Bye.